we will actually talk about that tonight. So
Great.
I'm glad you're here. I'm glad everybody's here. Again, welcome. We will go ahead and get started. The other person that is with us tonight, if y'all didn't notice, because we all signed out and signed back in, is Laura Salvatierra. She is our community nurse educator. She's who y'all received your emails from and gave you all that great information and all the extracurricular activities in your email. So I'm glad she's with us tonight. This is our lactation team. This picture's a little bit dated, but 4 of us are still here. Our goal is to help you in any way we can, just so you know. While you're in the hospital, our goal is to see everybody at least once while you're in the hospital. We are in the hospital every day from 8 to 4, 365 days a year. And so we should always be there unless there's some wonky fluke going on. Ideally, in the mornings, we tend to see our folks that are being discharged. So if you delivered at 4 in the morning, most likely we'll see you later in the afternoon, just so you know. But if you ever feel like if you have concerns, questions, feel like you're struggling, you can always just hit your nurse button and ask for lactation. So our goal is for you not to feel stressed about breastfeeding and for us to be available when you need us. We also do calls. So I'll give you the number to our lactation office and you can call anytime. And we also do outpatient visits. So if you get home and you're just struggling and can't figure out what's what, or things were going great and then all is great and you just need a little extra help, you can give us a call and we can schedule an outpatient too. If there is stuff, I think it was you, Rebecca, with your little one needing surgery not too long after birth, calling in the office before you deliver and kind of talking through and making a plan is also a good thing to do too. So just know we're available for that. Partners, we're really glad you've joined us this evening. Breastfeeding does take teamwork, and mamas, you're going to need a lot of support. Partners, you're going to be a huge part of that support, but you're also, to me, it's super important for you to learn how to manage the baby beyond the breast. And that's a huge part to me of the partner's role. So we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight too, that it's just way more than supporting at the breast. It's also figuring out how to manage your baby beyond the breast. So breastfeeding is a pretty fascinating process. I'm going to tell you right up front that your bodies are perfect by design. And there's all sorts of things that are going on that have prepped you for this point in your life. Literally from the time that you were born, you started developing, and each stage along your development through adolescence to the time that you became pregnant, your body was preparing to breastfeed and also to actually carry a child. So it's the delivery of a placenta that tells your body it's time to start making milk. Your estrogen and progesterone levels drop when your placenta is delivered. After that, it's stimulation that is going to tell your body how soon and how much milk to make. So stimulating your body and meaning putting your baby to breast, doing skin to skin, maybe hand expression, all of those types of things will really help get your milk in sooner. So stimulation is a big part of breastfeeding after your placenta is delivered. And then once your milk comes in, it becomes a supply and demand process. Whatever your baby takes out of the breast, your body remakes. So it's a pretty amazing process from start to finish. I will tell you, we all hear kind of horror stories about breastfeeding. We all hear the really not great things that happen and the struggles that women have, and it can be a struggle. I don't want to belittle any of that. But I will tell you, in general, 95% of breastfeeding issues come from positioning and latch. So really the biggest challenge at the beginning of breastfeeding is each of you are going to have to figure out how your baby fits well with your body. And it's going to be different for every single one of you. So that's this picture right here is my favorite picture of breastfeeding. And it just does a really good job of showing that that baby needs to have a mouthful of tissue. I'm going to show you, right? We all think, can you guys see my finger right there? So many of us think baby's mouth nice and wide, right around, you know, almost like a bottle, to come around like that. And the issue with that is your baby is supposed to get your nipple to the roof of their mouth all the way back to where the hard and soft palate meet. They're supposed to have a mouthful of tissue. They need a large teat. In fact, we often say it's called breastfeeding, not nipple feeding. So they need way more than what the nipple is in their mouth. So if the baby's latched like this, what happens is they come down and they pull harder than they have to, and then they come back and compress on that hard palate, which can be uncomfortable. But if a baby's positioned like this and gets that tissue right up underneath there, they come over and they fill their whole mouth with breast tissue and then come back, and then the nipple sits comfortably in the middle of the oral cavity. To do that, your baby has to be pretty darn close to you. So what I'm gonna, did somebody say something? I'm gonna show you this really quick. So this baby, I'm gonna turn her in towards me, and her ear, her shoulder, and her hip are all gonna be in line. And then I'm gonna support her across the back of her shoulders like that. When I'm holding her across her shoulders, if I was holding her with her head, I would push her forward, which would put her nose in the breast. And what we want is the chin buried in the breast. So if I'm holding her like this, again, I can push in on her shoulders here. And when I do that, watch what happens. Brings that nose off the breast really, really nicely. So we want her ear, her shoulder, and her hip in line. We want her rolled in tummy to tummy, or think chest in the breast. You want her chin buried deep in the breast, like this. And then she's going to come up and over the top, and then you're going to pivot to bring her nose back off like that, if you can see that. Oftentimes, if you start with the nipple at the baby's nose, like this, then the chin is in about the right place. So think nipple to nose, ear, shoulder, hip in line, chest to breast, chin buried deep, and which brings the nose slightly off the breast. I want all of y'all to just put your chin on your chest for a minute and try and swallow. It's kind of hard to do, and it's because your tongue has moved back into the back of your throat, and you can hear my voice change when I do that. So everybody lean up and just gently, you know, put your nose up, chin up in the air a little bit, try and swallow that way. And it's a lot easier, isn't it? And when I did that, you can hear my voice change from this to that, and it's because my tongue moved forward. So that chin being up and the nose slightly off the breast isn't so much about breathing, although it makes it easier to breathe and swallow. But what it really does is it extends your baby's tongue out so that she can get up underneath the breast and pull more efficiently. The other thing I forgot to say when we got started is if anybody has a question, pop in at any time. I would love to hear your questions in real time, and you don't need to raise your hand. You can just pop in, okay? There are a bunch of different holds. Again, there's no right and wrong. You're going to find what feels most comfortable to you, and you may create your own hold. Football hold we use a lot at the beginning of breastfeeding, especially if people are having a hard time latching their babies, mainly because you naturally come from underneath the breast. So if you look at these pictures, the mom on the top, you can see the baby a little bit better. So if you look, the ear, shoulder, and hip are in line. That baby's rolled in towards mama, tummy to tummy, or chest in the breast. You can see the support she has behind the shoulders. And you can see that the baby's head is tilted back a little bit. And she's got a smile on her face. And if you look at the picture at the bottom, you can see how mom's got that baby beautifully supported and rolled in towards her. You can't really see face and head quite so much, but that's really the gist. All the principles we just talked about, you're seeing in those pictures. Cradle hold is what a lot of us feel very comfortable nursing in. And again, if you look at this baby, ear, shoulder, hip in line, he's tummy to tummy or chest to breast with his mom. You can see that he's well supported behind his shoulders in both of those pictures. And it's kind of cool because it's not her hand here. It's her hand, it's her arm here that's creating the support. So there's a lot of different ways to create that support against the shoulder. But what that allows the baby to do is plant the chin deep and drop their head back off the breast. This is a cross cradle hold, and it literally is taking, I'm going to go back 2 pictures really quick. If you were holding your baby in football hold, like this, cross cradle is literally moving your baby across the chest using the same arm. So again, ear, shoulder, hip in line, baby's tummy to tummy. Mom has beautiful support across her baby's shoulders, which will allow him to plant his chin deep and bring the nose off the breast. This is a laid back position. This is your baby's most natural position. I think sometimes we forget that we're mammals, and babies have instinctual behaviors hardwired to feed. They're like every other mammal on the face of the planet. Your body is designed for them to find the breast. So your areola is darker so that they can see it. There's olfactory glands in your areola that emit smell so that they can, and it smells like like amniotic fluid. And they can, when they're belly to belly like that, they can use their hands and feet and crawl across your chest and latch perfectly every single time. But when you look at this, that baby's ear, shoulder, and hip are in line. She's belly to belly or chest to breast with her mama. Mom has beautiful support across the baby's shoulders, and the chin is in and the nose is slightly off. This is a sideline position. Again, baby's ear, shoulder, hip are in line. The upper picture, baby's not quite as deep, not quite as in the breast as in the bottom picture, but both moms look content with the positioning. The one reason I like the upper picture is it's not picture perfect, and I think that's important to know that everything's not going to look picture perfect. You're going to start, when your baby latches, you'll start to identify how it feels. And if it feels like your baby has a deep latch and feels good, we're going to go with it. That's fantastic. If it doesn't, then we need to figure out how to make it better. Does anybody have any questions so far? Okay. We're going to watch this video, Attaching Your Baby at the Breast. It was made by Global Health Media. It's one of the resources that Laura sent you in your email when you took this class. It's an excellent video. It's going to put into pictures everything that we've talked about so far. I want to make sure everybody can hear it. See if we can get it loaded. There we go. Can you all hear that?
A touch.
Yeah.
This is how to get in shape.
Sorry
fast.
about that.
If you want to drop this,
start eating more of these.
Do you have any comments or questions?
No, it makes a lot of
Okay.
sense.
It does. It's pretty fascinating.
Mhm.
Okay. So the next thing we're going to talk about is stages of milk. Did everybody get their book that Laura sent them?
Yeah.
Those of you that have it, go ahead and open to page 9. I'm going to hold it up here if you don't. I don't know if you actually, let me see that. It's not going to work because the background that I have on. So I will use this. You guys can see that right there. I don't know if I can get it in there. There we go. In the first days, if you look at the picture, baby's tummy is about the size of a small marble. Let me hold it up here. I can't find where the spot is. Sorry. It's about 5 to 7 milliliters. So I think what I want you guys to know, breastfeeding really isn't about food. Babies have these tiny, teeny little tummies when they're born. They develop them in the womb, and they're going to stretch to a much bigger size over the next couple of weeks. But these first days are just about helping your baby transition from the womb to the world and helping set their system up for the milk that's coming in 3 to 5 days. So colostrum, it's also called liquid gold. I don't know if any of y'all have heard that term before, but it's thick, it's dense, it's sticky. And what it does is it coats your baby's gut, and it helps their normal flora start to grow. And it does all sorts of lovely things. It helps them poop. It helps them spit up. There's immunoglobulins in it that coat their gut and help protect them from infection. There's way beyond that, the few things that I'm mentioning, but it really isn't about food. Every time they go to breast, they get a little bit more, so it helps stretch their little tummy out till they get to this transitional milk. And if you look at the picture in your book, the next one is about the size of somewhere between 15 to 27 milliliters. And that 30 milliliters is about an ounce. Not about, it is an ounce. So we're talking about half an ounce to a little shy of an ounce. And that's somewhere between days 3 and 5. And transitional milk is a mixture of colostrum and more mature milk. And then that large size tummy is your baby's full size tummy. That holds 2 to 3 ounces of milk. And that's somewhere between 10 days and 2 weeks. And that is when your full milk is fully mature and your baby really starts to grow. The one thing I want you to know, I wish I could get this. There we, almost have focus there. It just doesn't like that. So in that teeny tiny little tummy, that is not designed for growth at all. It is, so your baby's going to lose weight is what I want you to know. And that really worries a lot of people. In the last trimester, your baby develops brown fat around their organs and underneath their skin, and glycogen stores in their liver. And that's what they burn for their first several days until their milk comes in. So again, when I said that your bodies were perfect by design, I wasn't kidding. The things that can make that a little bit more challenging is if your baby is small for gestational age, which is normally, well, it's any baby that's below the 10th percentile, or if they're born preterm or late preterm. And if that happens, then we'll come up with a different plan. They don't have as many stores to burn, so we need to be a little bit more proactive with those folks. But with that said, a normal term newborn, meaning greater than 37 weeks, and has the capacity to really not get a lot in the first several days of life. Once they hit, so go ahead and turn to page 20 in your books. And I want you just to look at the bottom of the page, and what it says under weight on day 1 is weight loss. What it says on day 2 is weight loss. What it says on day 3 is less weight loss. And then if you flip the page over, it says weight stable, and then baby starts to gain. So our goal really is what's going to happen. Your baby's here at birth. They're going to lose. They're going to plateau out, and then they're going to start to grow. When they're at that mature, when your mature milk is in, their belly is normally stretched out to its full size, and that's when they start to grow, like how we anticipate in our heads. So you'll have a baby who's eating every 2 to 3 hours. You're going to hear gulping swallows at the breast, and what you'll see them gain anywhere between 5 to 9 ounces per week, which is huge. But in this first couple of weeks, it really is a transition time from the womb. And we'll watch your babies very closely every night that they're in the hospital. We're going to weigh them and compare it to their birth weight. The goal is really for them not to lose more than 10% of their birth weight. Sometimes babies go over that, but if their curve is normal, like if they lost day and 9% on the second day and they're down to 11% on the third day, I'm not super worried about them because they lost weight, and lost less weight. But that's something that we'll cross that bridge. If any of y'all come to that, we can talk about that more. But I just want you to know that the beginning of breastfeeding really isn't about your baby getting a great vigorous feed every moment that they go to breast. We're going to look at this on page 20 again, this chart. And what it says on day 1 is your baby's getting few drops to a teaspoon when they go to breast. Your breasts are soft. But the big thing I want you to look at is baby behavior. Your baby's sleepy. There'll be multiple attempts, possibly 1 or more successful feeds. Most babies' best feed is right after birth. It's what we call the golden hours. It's when everybody's got a little bit of an adrenaline going on, depending on how your labor went. And babies tend to be pretty alert in that time frame. Some don't, but most are. And that's normally when we have our most successful feed. And then what happens is babies go into a deep lull, and you guys are tired too because you have birthed. And a lot of parents become very concerned in this time frame because their babies are kind of like, I don't care. I am tired. I don't feel like eating. So I don't know if you remember from like our I can't remember which slide it was, but talking about that it's stimulation that protects your milk supply and gets it in sooner, makes it more plentiful. So what we're going to ask you to do while you're in the hospital is offer the breast about every 3 hours if your baby's not waking up on their own. If they're not waking up and giving you signals, like we saw in the video of them kind of lipping their lips or rooting or, asking to eat, you're going to say, hey, are you willing to do this for me? And you're going to unwrap them, and you're going to rub their backs, and you're going to check their diapers, and you're going to offer the breast. And if they're not interested, that's totally okay. We just want you to be proactive in asking. So the other thing that you can do in that time frame, if your baby is super sleepy, is we're going to learn how to hand express and just express drops, and you can rub those into your baby's mouth. And when you look at what we do on day 1, your baby's getting drops to a teaspoon. That's not a lot. So if you can hand express a few drops and rub those in your baby's mouth and put your baby on your chest, skin to skin actually helps stimulate your hormones beautifully. And that's what we're shooting for, is stimulating your body, stimulating your baby to wake up also. But if they don't, it's totally okay. So I'm not super concerned about sleepy babies, but what I want you to do is be proactive and offer the breast and stimulate your body and help build and protect your milk supply. We talked a little bit about this already. So those regular feedings, feedings isn't really the right word, but regular attempts. If your baby's not waking up by about the 3-hour mark, you definitely want to offer the breast and hand express and do the skin to skin, all the things that we just talked about. That sheer stimulation will help get your milk in sooner and more plentiful. It is normal for your baby to start cluster feeding about night 2. And what I want you to start thinking about when your babies are born is look at 24-hour periods, not just days. So a person, let's say a baby is born on, I forgot the date today, the 30th. And one baby was born at 7 o'clock in the morning and another baby's born at 11 o'clock at night. So they're both born on the 30th. So technically April 31st is your second day of life, but it really isn't. That baby who was born at 7 o'clock in the morning would be moving into day 2 at 7 o'clock in the morning, and that baby that was born at 11 o'clock at night would be moving into day 2 at 11 o'clock at night. So I want you in your several days as your milk is developing and you know, you guys are trying to figure this out, think about 24-hour periods, just not days themselves. Babies on night 2, well, in day 2, they start to wake up a little bit more. They start to, they'll have 8 to 12 attempts. Several of those will be successful feeds. And they'll start to cluster feed, and it tends to be on night 2. For that baby that was born at 11 o'clock, night 2 may not be, or their night 2 might not be a cluster feed night because they literally are just moving into their second day. The baby who was born at 7 o'clock in the morning might have a typical night 2 kind of thing on night 2. So you just got to kind of remember that. But cluster feeding is babies starting to wake up. They're starting to burn through those stores that they have, and they're starting to get hungry. So cluster feeding is normally more please, more please, more please, more please is what they're saying. They're trying to develop their milk supply. It's nature's way of taking care of you putting your baby to breast and your baby being able to communicate with your body. But the other thing that's going on night 2 too is you have these babies that are coming out of this very kind of sleepy time. They're waking up and they're starting to say, dang, I have air in my system for the first time. I'm a little gassy. This is uncomfortable. And they're just cranky. So you've got cranky and starting to get hungry. And it's a lovely combo to have your baby go, hey, I want to be at breast. I want to be at breast. I want to be at breast. So it can be, it tends to be a very challenging night. A lot of people get discouraged during night 2. And I will tell you, normally, if you allow your baby to do that, then you can, the next day is normally when you start to feel heaviness in your breast because your milk is coming in, and you'll start to hear bigger swallows and your baby mellowing out a little bit because they're feeling better. Listening for swallows after your milk comes in is you want to do. You may feel the letdown reflex. Most people, moms, don't at the beginning. Colostrum, because it's not as plentiful, you don't really feel it, but you'll notice it. So when your baby first gets on the breast, they kind of pull because they're stimulating the nerve that releases milk from the back of the chest wall. All of us in our breasts, in the lower quadrant of your breast is where the nerve comes into your breast. So babies, when they push their hands on the breast, when they come back and forth on the breast, when they might suck right at first, breathing on the breast, all of those things stimulate the nerve, and that sends a message to your brain, and your brain releases oxytocin, which causes the cells in the back of the chest wall to contract, and that releases milk. And that's what the letdown reflex is. Normally, once milk comes in is when women really notice that more. You'll all of a sudden, some women describe it as just a warm sensation. Some say it feels a little bit like an electrical impulse. Some don't feel it at all. And all of those things are fine. Your baby, how you will know that your baby had a letdown is they'll stop the little pulling, and all of a sudden will pull and swallow, pull and swallow. Diaper output is something you're going to be following pretty closely in the first several weeks until your full milk supply is in. If you're looking at the breastfeeding booklet, output on day 1, all we really expect from your baby is at least 1 pee and 1 poop. On day 2, we say 2 and 2. On day 3, 3 and 3. And I will tell you, it's never really that pretty and that simple. A lot of babies will poop 8 to 10 times in the first day, and they're clearing out all of that meconium. And then they don't have much left. And if they're only getting drops to a teaspoon, you're not going to see a lot of poop until your milk starts coming in. So I wouldn't fret about it too much. Once your full milk is in, we expect to see 6 to 8 wet diapers a day and at least 4 good poops. And 4 good poops are about the size of a quarter or bigger. They'll be a lot bigger than that oftentimes, but that's kind of what we're looking at to make sure that baby's intake is appropriate. So I normally tell people it's like you want at least, as a way to remember that, just $1 worth of poop per day. So if, let's say your baby starts pooping every other day and they poop all the way up their back, you can just kind of chalk that up and say, yay, we had a couple dollars worth of poop and we're right on track where we should be. I think we've talked about most of this stuff already, but just you want at least 8+ feedings in 24 hours. The baby's going to gain anywhere from 5 to 9 ounces per week once your milk is in, and that's up till 3 months. So there's a lot of growth in the first 3 months of life after the first 2 weeks. You want to keep feeding every 2 to 3 hours until your baby's back to birth weight, and then longer stretches are okay. So that's going to be somewhere between that 10-day to 2-week mark. You're going to be a little bit more persistent. That if your little one's not waking up by the 3-hour mark, you're going to say, hey, sis, I need you to wake up and we need to take care of business. And that's until she's back to birth weight. And then the goal is to be back to birth weight by about 2 weeks of life. Okay, so we've talked a lot about breastfeeding so far. The 5 S's come from a book called Happiest Baby on the Block. And it's a system, not a system, but a strategy for comforting a baby that's gassy or uncomfortable. The thing that's really hard at the beginning, and you guys will find out, first of all, I'm going to tell you, your babies are excellent communicators. They speak very, very, very well. And if you watch their body language and their cries, you will get to know them very well. The thing that's hard at the beginning, though, is everything looks kind of the same. So in the video, when we saw the little babies kind of going nom, 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 and rooting for their hands and swinging their heads towards their mothers, we all go, oh, that baby's hungry, that baby's hungry, that baby's hungry. And that baby very well may be hungry. I think the issue is at the beginning, babies will do a lot of the same things when they are gassy and they're uncomfortable, because they know that being on their mother's chest and being able to suckle, those are comfort measures. So we're going to talk about the 5 S's really quick. It's swaddling, side or stomach, swing or sway, shushing, and suckling. And I want you to think about your womb right now and your little person that's growing inside of you. She is tight and snug in your uterus. She is curled up. She is not laying on her back. She is in constant motion. Literally every move you make, every breath you take, we could write a song about it, she's a part of. And the shushing is your insides. It's your heartbeat. It's the blood rushing through your vessels. It's your intestinal tract. She is part of the system. And then suckling, she has access to her hands, her feet, her cord, and she can suckle on all of those things when she's in the womb. So your womb is the 5 S's, and it's a happy place. So when she's born, when you think about breastfeeding and you think about her laying on your belly, all the pictures that we saw of women breastfeeding, they had their babies tight up against them. They were nice and snug. They might not have been in a swaddle, but they were nice and snug. They were turned on their sides. There was pressure on their belly. They were still in constant motion with their moms, because even though she might not have been up walking around or whatever, she was breathing, she was talking, she was doing subtle movements that your baby's been part of, so that still they're part of that sway or motion. She can smell you, she can feel you, and she can suckle. So moms, you are the 5 S's inside and out, which is just kind of cool. And we all just want to be y'all when it comes to babies, because that's really where they want to be. So partners, I think, to me, the 5 S's are something that you want to master as you get to know your little one. I'm going to show you a classic gas hold that if you looked up on YouTube, the 5 S's or happiest baby on the block or a gas hold for a newborn, this is the picture that you would see. So I have my baby swaddled right here. I'm going to bring this down a little bit so you guys can see. And I'm going to scoot back a little bit. So I'm going to put this sweet baby in the crook of my arm, which isn't really a way that we tend to think of holding babies, but her head is really well supported and my arm's coming down her body. I can, if depending on her size, sometimes this is actually a very big baby. Most of y'all's babies won't be this big. It's flexible as a real baby, but I can grab her feet and pull them up a little bit. But the biggest thing is I want to push in here and get pressure on her belly. So I want her nice and snug up against me, and I want to draw her in nice and firm. So I've got her swaddled, I've got her on her side, I've got pressure on her belly. So I've got the first two going on. The swinger sway really is just motion. And almost all of us, when we pick up our babies, we start to move with them anyway, and kind of move around with them like that. And the other thing we tend to do too is we shush them. That's kind of a normal parental thing to do, is, you know, just shh, 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 or shh. And it's amazing how your babies will respond to that. You'll be absolutely amazed, and it will, partners, it will help you feel very empowered that you can manage your baby beyond the breast. Oftentimes, if you have a very fussy baby that's having a hard time settling out of the breast, doing the 5 S's can really help settle them out. And once they're settled, you can try breast again, or it may be that they didn't want breast at all. They just needed comfort from their parent. So anyway, that's the 5 S's. I encourage you to ask about them and learn them. And there's 50 different ways to do it. I showed you one way. And we can talk about it more when y'all are in the hospital on how to comfort your baby beyond the breast. It really is important to learn those skills, especially if, you know, on those cluster feeding nights, let's say baby's been feeding, and mom, you're exhausted. But every time you put the baby to breast, she goes right to sleep, but you take her away and she's like, wait, I still want to suckle. Most of the time that's gas and discomfort. So learning the 5 S's and letting somebody else manage her away from the breast can be really helpful, especially in the postpartum period. It really is kind of a survival technique to figure out ways to manage her so that everybody can get rest. I think we've talked about most of these already, but the first few days really are crucial in your journey. Again, it's not about great vigorous feeds. It is about offering the breast at least 8 times in a 24-hour period. So if you have this very, very snoozy baby, you're going to be offering that breast about every 3 hours and hand expressing and doing skin to skin. If you have a more active baby who's waking up every 2 to 3 hours, you're going to be feeding somewhere in that 8 to 12 range. You do want to feed on demand when your baby's asking for it, and you want to ensure you're working on a good latch and good positioning to avoid pain. I will tell you, pain is a sign that I think a lot of times when we finally get a baby latched, we're just like, I will do whatever I have to. I will, and it's not technically being a martyr, it's being a mother, just saying, I will do what I have to for my baby to feed her appropriately. The thing that's crazy is that if it's painful, she's working very hard for less milk. If it feels good, she's working less and getting more. So it's good for both of you when it's not painful. You always want to offer both breasts with each feed, although I will tell you oftentimes, especially at the beginning, the pain, babies won't take the second breast, and that's totally okay, but you always want to offer it. Because oftentimes even a sleepy baby will nurse for a little bit longer on that side. But a lot of times if they had like a 30 or 45-minute feed on one side, they won't go to the other side.
So what would you do at that point with the milk in that breast? Should there be like a hand suction pump or something to collect the milk so it doesn't get weighed down, or
No.
does she decide the next time?
So right now we're talking about, so it depends on what time frame we're talking about. I'm going to say at the beginning, when you're developing your milk supply, I would just put her to that side the next time and don't worry about it. If we're getting ready to talk about engorgement right now, so let's say that she nursed your milk is coming in, that's what engorgement is, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more, but let's say she nurses for 10 or 15 minutes on that right side and she softens it up beautifully, and you're like, oh gosh, that feels, and then you go to put her to the second side and she's like, Mom, I just can't do it, I am so full, I can't see straight. And that left breast is full and tight and firm and painful, that would be an okay time to pump. But in this time frame that we're talking about with engorgement, I don't want you to pump to empty the breast, because if you do that, your body's going to make that much more milk and it's going to take way longer to get through the engorgement period. Later on down the road, your body will just balance out based on what your baby is doing. So if she only nurses on one side, your body will just adjust to that, and then you'll be able to go back and forth without having to do interventions in general. So has anybody heard of engorgement, knows what engorgement is? Have you heard other women talk about it?
Just that it's painful.
Yeah, so it can be. It's not always. Engorgement is when your milk, your mature milk starts to come in. It's somewhere normally in between days 3 and 5. The crazy thing is it's not all milk. It's also just the changes in your breast. So there's a lot of swelling going on, and it can be super uncomfortable. Some women don't feel it at all. Some women get rock hard, painful breasts. Most of us fall somewhere in between those two extremes. So heavy breasts, feelings of fullness, but it's important to remember that it's not all milk. So oftentimes it lasts anywhere from 24, 48 to 72 hours, and it takes a bit for your body to balance out. So once your milk is in and babies are taking out, they're filling up that little belly, but you got to remember that belly's stretching out over the next several days. So everything your baby takes out is going to get remade. Everything you take out is going to get remade. So you need to be really careful in that time frame. As long as you're removing that milk early and often and effectively, you feel a heck of a lot less pain. Hence the reason it's going to be super important to still, if your baby's not waking up at the 3-hour mark in this time frame, to go ahead and wake them up and get them to feed. And that really is for your breast health also. It's important to take good care of your breasts. Some women do run a low-grade fever during when their milk comes in, but it should never, ever go over 100.4. If it's over 100.4, that's something that you would want to call your obstetrician about and have a conversation, because in general, that means there's something else going on somewhere else in your body. Treatment for engorgement, I want you to think about inflammation. I want you to think about engorgement as an inflammatory process. So anything that helps with inflammation, like if you sprained your wrist, what would you do? You would put ice on it. You might take ibuprofen because you're trying to decrease the swelling, and you're going to do the same thing for your breasts. So the number one thing you're going to do is feed your baby. You're going to nurse often. You can rotate through different holds. Very gentle massage, literally just kind of finger tapping or gentle massage like that. You don't want to do anything deep to your breast. Your breasts are very vascular, and anything that if you're super firm with them or deep massage, you can actually cause more inflammation by breaking tiny little vessels in there and whatnot. So you really do want to be very gentle with your breast. You're going to ice only. NSAIDs, that's like ibuprofen. Sunflower soy lecithin, I wouldn't use right away, but if you have severe engorgement, like that really tight, firm, painful breast, it can be of value to add sunflower soy lecithin. That is just a supplement. Lecithins are fat emulsifiers. So what it does is help break down the fat in your breast milk so that stuff doesn't, with all that inflammation in your ducts getting compressed, that the milk can still flow through there and not get clogged up. But soy and sunflower lecithin are also anti-inflammatories. So it's just an extra way to get a little bit of help take care of the inflammation a little bit more. Talked about is pumping for comfort. Like I said on that, she fed beautifully on your right breast and your left breast is tight and firm and painful. It is okay to pump in that time frame, but just enough to take the pressure off the breast to get through to the next feed, as opposed to pumping to empty, because then you'll just create engorgement for a longer period of time. We saw those feeding cues in the video, but sucking on the hands, turning head side to side, rooting, early fussing, moving arms and legs, all of those things can mean I'm ready to eat, but they can also mean I'm gassy, I'm uncomfortable, and I need some help. So again, just talking about the 5 S's again, just know that if you're having a hard time, your baby's doing all of these things, but every time you put her to breast, she's either arching her back and pushing her feet and you can't get her to latch and she's super fussy, or she goes right to sleep. Most likely it was comfort that she was seeking and not food. And that's really, again, what y'all are going to be figuring out in these first days to weeks after life is what your baby's talking about. You're new to this, and I will tell you, by about 2 to 3 weeks, you will be speaking your baby very well and can share with other people what your baby's talking about. But in those first days when you're tired and you haven't done this before, it can be a little intimidating and a little overwhelming. So just know that I just would love for you to look at your progress from day to day and how much you know tomorrow compared to today. And you'll be amazed at what you learn in these first days to weeks of life. States of sleep. You guys can read the little chart there. Obviously, we have a baby that's deep asleep and to the extreme of crying. The hardest time to put your baby to breast is when they're crying. It is hard to get them to settle and focus. The ideal time to put your baby to breast is in that quiet, alert state. I will tell you right now, though, some babies go from that deep sleep to crying like 0 to 60, like a car can do at times. So you may not get that quiet alert stage. And that's, again, when the 5 S's can come in really helpful to kind of calm her before you put her to breast, take care of whatever the underlying is that's waking her up and having her go from that deep sleep to crying. But ideally, the quiet alert state is when your baby's just thinking about it and saying, I think I might like a little bit of something. That's when you're going to have the most success of putting her to breast. Breastfeeding, a lot of people have questions about this. Both the American Academy of Pediatrics and the World Health Organization recommend breastfeeding for the first 6 months of life. And then your baby receives benefits from breastfeeding all the way up to 2 years. So that's the recommendation from the American Academy of Pediatrics and the World Health Organization. But the goal really is we want to support you through whatever the desire of your heart is and help you reach your goals and your family's goals. So it really is as long as mutually desired by mother and baby. But your baby gets great benefits from breastfeeding till 6 months and then up to 2 years and beyond. In our country, there are moms that breastfeed 2 years and beyond, but it's not as common as around the world. But I just want y'all to realize that your baby does get benefits from that. And I will tell you that a 2-year-old isn't nursing in the same way that a newborn does. A newborn's nursing around the clock, and a 2-year-old might be, nursing first thing in the morning, maybe last thing at night, maybe at nap time kind of thing, but it's not where the majority of their calories come from, but the benefits of breast milk can be really helpful. Eating and drinking while breastfeeding. The number one thing you want to do as a breastfeeding parent is to make sure you're well hydrated. So drinking for your thirst is going to be super important. We used to tell everybody, you need to drink 6 to 8 ounces of water per day. And there really isn't a formula how much water you should drink. It's drinking to your thirst. And once you're through the initial couple week postpartum period, when you're getting rid of all the stuff that you've had in your body to grow your sweet babies, and you're going to pee a lot at the beginning is what I'm telling you. You're going to void a lot. And that is just getting rid of circulating blood volume and fluid that you may have received during your labor, just also, and what you're drinking also. But as that kind of tapers off, what you should be doing is peeing about 6 times a day, and your urine shouldn't look concentrated. So if you're going to the restroom and you look super concentrated, then you need to boost your fluids. And same, if you overhydrate, it's not normally a big deal. It can be if you're drinking way, way, way too much, but most of us don't do that. You also want to be eating a well-balanced diet. Just like when you're pregnant, when you're growing your baby in the womb, you're just growing your baby outside the womb. So there are foods, though, that are considered lactogenic, meaning that they help with your milk supply. So the picture of the oatmeal and blueberries are a couple of examples of lactogenic foods. We all kind of hear about oatmeal or, that's really the number one thing that we tell people can help boost your milk supply. But really any whole grains are great. Vegetables and fruits that are dark in pigment, hence the blueberries, but cherries, strawberries. It's funny, I always think of beets. People really don't like beets. I love beets, so you either love them or hate them. But dark green leafy vegetables, carrots, tomatoes, things like that, things that have a deep pigment to them tend to be really good for your milk supply. A lot of people ask questions about alcohol, and I'm going to tell you right now that alcohol, nicotine, caffeine, they're all drugs, and they move into your bloodstream when you consume them. The very cool thing about your milk supply is that it's stored in cells in the back of your chest wall. And just like the other cells in the rest of your body, things move in and out of them all the time. So when you are, let's say, having a glass of wine, like in the picture, if you choose to have a glass of wine, when you feel the effects of it, that's when it's in your milk supply. It's in the other cells of your body. It's also in the cells where your milk is produced. So when you don't feel the effects of it anymore, it has dissipated and moved out. Your body's excreting it. So in general, if you want to have an alcoholic beverage of some type, having that near the end of a feed or right after you feed, in general, it'll be fine to put your baby back to breast in the next 2 to 3 hours because it'll already be out of your system. When we're talking, so the key is really moderation, and the same with caffeine. It's if you enjoy a cup of coffee, have a cup of coffee. If you enjoy a soda, have a soda. If you drink 4 sodas and you notice your baby's jittery not long after that, then that's probably too much soda. So in general, moderation is the key. If you're planning on drinking a lot of alcoholic beverages, then you do not want to use that milk until it is out of your system. So at that point, you would need to pump. And I don't tell people to normally dump it. You can save it and use it like in a bath or something like that. If babies have a rash or something like that, there's a lot of good qualities to it, but you just can't use it to consume it. So anybody have any questions about that? Okay. Comfort measures for sore nipples. The things that we've talked about really this whole class is you want good positioning and latch. That's really what you want to work on in this first bit of time. So a deep latch, if your latch is uncomfortable or it's pinchy or just doesn't feel right, remember to break the latch before you take the baby off. Put your finger in the corner of the mouth, kind of gently push in until you can break the suction and then move away from the baby. EBM stands for expressed breast milk. So you can use a little bit of your breast milk. You can hand express a drop and rub it around on your areola and nipple, and that will help with tenderness. Lanolin, nipple butter, coconut oil, olive oil, all of those things can be helpful for sore nipples. The reason those things work is that once you have sore nipples, you just have some micro scabbing going on that often you can't even see, but when the baby latches, it hurts. So when you're putting that lanolin on after your baby nurses, what it does is it keeps those tiny little scabs moist, and when baby latches across the top again, it tends to not hurt as bad, which is kind of nice. Lanolin and the nipple butters and all of that stuff really are not used as preventative measures. You don't slather it on to it. It really, your nipples and areola are designed to be nursed on. So you don't need to do anything as a preventative. It's just really used if you've developed sore nipples as you're trying to figure out how to latch baby appropriately. Comfort gel pads are another tool that we use, and they look like little gummies, and they go right across your areola and nipple, and they can be lovely, especially if your nipples are more painful. It just helps protect anything from touching them. You can put them in the refrigerator, and it's a nice cool surface to put on. Both lanolin and comfort gel pads, we have those at the hospital. So if you end up needing them, we can just give them to you. You don't need to pack a bunch of stuff unless you want to, but I wouldn't even go out and I wouldn't purchase a lot of this stuff unless you need it. So a lot of times we get lanolin, nipple butter, stuff like that as gifts. And a lot of women have just jars and tubes and stuff of all of that stuff. But a lot of times you really don't need it, but just know that if you do, we do have it at the hospital. And then always know that you can call our lactation office for help. On the back of the breastfeeding booklet, on the very back, there is a white sticker, and the top number is our lactation services number. Calls directly into our office. I'm going to tell you right now, we very rarely answer the phone because we are normally out on the floor assisting parents. But we do check those messages throughout the day and do return calls throughout the day too. The other thing I want you to know is call anytime. If it's 10 o'clock at night or 4 o'clock in the morning, it's totally, I would just call and leave your message. That way we'll see it first thing in the morning. It can get back to you sooner. So I just, even if it's after hours, during hours, you're going to get an answering machine most of the time. And so it's like, it really doesn't matter when you call. So just call and let us know what's going on so that we can get back to you sooner. Pumping. A lot of people do have questions about pumps, and I'm going to talk about when to start if nothing else is going on. If you have a late preterm baby or special circumstances, we may get you, well, we will get you started pumping right away to get your milk supply in sooner and more plentiful if your baby isn't able to go to breast and do what they need to do. So, but in general, for a full term baby, I'm going to say we want to start pumping somewhere in the 4 to 6 week range. And the reason for that is the first 2 weeks, your baby is developing their milk supply. In the next 2 to 4 weeks, they're mastering the breast and learning, you know, whatever they take out is going to be remade. And it just allows your body to kind of get in a really good rhythm. And it's just allowing your body to get into this milk making routine. And once you're in that 4 to 6 week range and you start adding something in, it won't mess with the system as much as if you mess with it early on. So ideally in the 4 to 6 week range is when you want to start pumping. When to pump, I'm going to just give a scenario. Everyone starts pumping for different reasons. Sometimes it's just, I want to be able to get out of the house and I want someone else to be able to feed the baby. Sometimes it's in preparation. There's a lot of different reasons we choose to pump. So you will look, but what I'm going to use is a scenario of going back to work. So let's say your baby in that time frame is feeding at like 7 o'clock in the morning and then again at 10. So what you'll do is you feed your baby from about 7 to 7:30, and then somewhere in the 8 to 8:30 range, you're going to go ahead and pump for 15 minutes. And your body will have had a chance to replenish its supply a little bit. And then when it's time for your baby to go back to breast at 10 o'clock, you'll go ahead and feed your baby then, and it should be good. So when you add a pumping, you're actually adding a feed session is what you're doing. So you don't want to, you want to find a time that's convenient. Your milk is most plentiful in the morning, so morning tends to be a good time to start pumping. But it just depends on what works best for you and your family. So you will just start pumping once a day, and then you'll store your milk where either freeze it or put it in the refrigerator. And that's the same time frame that you'll start offering bottles, and it'll be like 2 to 3 times a week that you would offer a bottle. And it should be someone other than mama that offers the bottle, just because if your baby's laying on your chest, they will want to go to breast. They're pretty smart little people. So it's helpful to have somebody else feed the bottle. But with that said, in that time frame that your baby's getting a bottle, you'll need to pump again because your breast will be full and you'll need to deal with that. So anyway, I'm going to talk about storage before I talk about pumps. Milk storage, there's a 4-4-6 rule. So 4 hours out at room temperature, 4 hours at in the refrigerator, and then up to 6 months in the freezer. And in the freezer, I'm talking about a refrigerator freezer combo. In a deep freeze, your milk can last up to a year. types of pumps, I'm sure y'all have started looking into that already. There are so many pumps out on the market, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. To me, the easiest, how I would start, first of all, talk to your insurance companies and find out who, what your insurance company offers and what your options are. And then once you know what your options are, you can start narrowing things down from there. You really want to consider how you're planning to use your pump. It's, are you, you know, let's say you're a teacher and it's really hard to get away from the classroom to actually pump for 15 minutes as often as you need to. Then maybe a wearable pump would be a good option for you, where you could wear it and continue doing what you need to, or if you need to do it during a planning time frame, that type of thing. So it really is, are you going to be driving in a car from appointment to appointment, and something that plugs into your car, or battery powered? Those are the types of things that you want to consider when you're trying to figure out what type of pump you want. If you're having a hard time figuring it out, you can always give us a call prenatally. We can also talk about it in the hospital postnatally. We do have a new service in the hospital where you can get a pump through us if you don't have your pump already. So that's kind of a nice feature. The other thing too, if you haven't tapped into the Sentara Martha Jefferson maternity page, that's the Facebook page. It's really nice to get on there. It's great. You can ask questions and say, so these are my options. Has anybody had luck with these pumps? That kind of thing. And women are amazing about sharing their experiences with different pumps, what's worked best for them. But I will tell you, pumps are unique to each individual, and sometimes it's hard to figure out. There's also forums that you can go on to kind of look at and see what it is, what people are saying about different pumps, what's worked well for different. When you're in the hospital, we can help you measure. Some pumps actually send measuring devices with their pumps now. I've seen that in a couple of different pumps, and I can't remember which ones they are. But we also have measuring tools at the hospital that we can measure your nipple for you so that you know the proper size of the flange you need. Almost all pumps come with a standard flange size of either 24 or 25, and then normally have a larger one than that. Most women are actually a little bit smaller than that, to be perfectly honest. But how flange size works, whatever you measure. So let's say you measure 19 millimeters. We would go up 2 centimeters from that, or excuse me, it's centimeters. Yeah. Anyway, so you would actually benefit from using a 21. I can't remember if it's millimeters or centimeters, so I'm very sorry for that. I apologize. But anyway, whatever the measurement is, if 19, it would be 21. And if you were 21, then that 24 would most likely work for you. Some companies, almost all the pump companies make kind of generalized sizes. And then there's a lot of different companies out there that make very specialized sizes that are compatible with other pumps. So, but you can always try the flange that you have. And if it's working beautifully, that's great. But if you pump and it's painful and you're uncomfortable, flange size would be one of the first things that I looked at. We already talked about returning to work. Breastfeeding support. Just know, first of all, that you can call us anytime when you're in the hospital and when you're not in the hospital. We really want you to find your network, find a group of people that are going to support you and lift you and help you on this journey, not just in breastfeeding, but in parenting. And we have support groups available. when you guys are discharged from the hospital, you will get a sheet of paper that has our support groups available on that. None of them are specific to breastfeeding, but there's Welcome to Motherhood, which breastfeeding is a huge topic in that group oftentimes because that's what a lot of us struggle with at the beginning. But there is virtually and in person. So just know that there's a lot of different options. There's father support groups, and there's, if you're dealing with anxiety or postpartum depression, there's a support group for that. Also on our community page, which you'll be able to get to. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. It just said my internet was unstable, so I wasn't sure. The other resource that's really good is the Leche League. If you've never heard of them, they are a worldwide breastfeeding support organization of women helping other women breastfeed. And on the back of your breastfeeding booklet on that white sticker, their warm line is listed there, meaning that there's a human body that will answer that phone and help you, talk you through, or help you with whatever's going on, or just a listening ear if you need that. And also their blog spot is listed there for the Charlottesville area, if that's how you like to communicate the best. So they can be a really good resource also. The other thing I want you to know is just giving yourself some grace. I don't know why, but when it comes to parenting and breastfeeding, all of us, most of us, I shouldn't say all of us, just expect to be perfect from the get-go. For some reason, we don't really expect the learning curve that is parenting and breastfeeding. And really, when you think about anything in your life that you've done, you don't do anything well the first time around. You don't sit down at the piano and play a concerto. You start with, banging on the keys and trying to figure it out. Walking, you don't come out of the womb walking. You come out and you move through different stages, and you eventually crawl, and you wobble, and you pull yourself up, and you fall, and you do all sorts of things before you're walking and running and doing great things. So the big thing I want you to remember is that it is a journey, and that give yourself grace during that journey, and know that and really look at your progress as opposed to where you think you should be. So where you were today will be very, very different from where you are tomorrow. And just kind of keep that in mind as you're going through this process. So, and then you guys can read that. And congratulations, you have graduated from breastfeeding class. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Yes. Megan?
I don't have any questions or comments. I was just applauding, saying that I'm happy that we finished.
It looked like a raising hand to me. So thank you very much. That's funny. Okay, well, I'm glad all of y'all came tonight. And like I said, if we can help you in any way prenatally, give us a call. If not, we'll see you guys in the hospital, and are super excited for each of your journeys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Rebecca, if you want to stay, we can talk real quick.